Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In our last video, we learned about file handling, how to open files, write contents to them, read content from them, and how to properly manage resources using with syntax. Today, we are going to learn about exception handling. We'll see how we can handle when the Python program abruptly stops execution. Highly recommend watching this on a big screen and coding along with me. That's the best way to learn. If you get stuck anywhere, feel free to drop your questions in the comments below or email me at saket.saketlabs@gmail.com. I'd love to help. And before we jump in, if you're enjoying this Python series, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel and turn on notification bell so you don't miss out on the future lessons. It really helps the channel grow and keeps me motivated to create more awesome tutorials for you. Alright, let's get started. Before we get started, I want you guys to know why handling exceptions are important. So I have a sample program here to demonstrate why exception handling is important. Let me just try to run this. If I try to execute this pre.py, as you can see now, I've been prompted to add a number. Instead of entering a number, I'm going to type Saket. As you can see here, the program got terminated with an error saying Saket is an invalid integer. As you can see here, even though I've entered input and even though I have a print statement here, it is not printing Saket. Right after the execution of this line, the program got terminated abruptly. So to have a control over the execution flow, we require try, catch, error handling. So now let us go through examples here to better understand how we can use try, except blocks to handle errors. The first example here is of when we enter a number here, it is just going to print a number. But whenever we try to input something other than a number, it throws an exception saying it's not a valid number. Let us try to run this and check. I'm going to fire interactive terminal here. I'm going to copy paste it. So now if I enter 10, you can see this statement got executed. Whereas this particular statement, oops, that was not a valid number, didn't get executed because the except block only gets executed when there is a error in the statements that is specified in the try block. So let us try to run the same command again, same program again. We'll copy this, I'll paste it. Now instead of typing a number, what I'm going to type is I'm going to type Saket. As you can see here, as soon as I input Saket, it executed the else block. So here, whenever I entered Saket, this input method returned Saket. When int method tried to cast Saket to integer type, there was an error. As soon as the error occurred, instead of executing the consecutive statement, it went and executed the except block. So this is how the try except block works. So example 2 demonstrates how we can have a multiple except blocks for different types of errors. So as you can see here, I'll try to execute this now. So here there are two types of errors that are being handled here. So one being value error, where instead of integers, if you type something string or something else, whenever there is a casting error, then value error gets thrown and this particular statement gets executed. But whenever there is a 0 in the denominator, this 0 division error gets thrown. So let us try to check that. So I copy pasted this command and now I'm trying to add a numerator. So let me just add numerator as 20 and denominator as 0. So if I try to execute this since the denominator is 0, this should throw 0 division error. So whenever we try to print a calculate result numerator by denominator, this particular statement will throw 0 division error, which will ultimately print this statement. Let me just execute. As you can see, denominator cannot be 0. So to understand this better, I'm going to add print statements here. Numerator received, denominator results. I'm just going to log everything here so that where we can find out where exactly the error is being generated. So let me copy this again, paste it here. So now I'm going to add numerator, let it be 20. So as you can see, there is no error while receiving the numerator. Now let me try to add denominator. So here as well, as you can see here, denominator was received, whereas while calculating the result, there is an error. So this denominator cannot be 0 has been printed, as this is a 0 division error that is been thrown here in this particular statement. So this block got executed. If the result was calculated, then a completed result statement was also printed. But here, as you can see, until denominator received, until this statement, everything was fine. After while calculating the results, there was an error. Hence, denominator cannot be 0. Error was occurred. So let me try to execute the same statement. Whereas in this case, we are going to try to add other than integer so that value error gets thrown. Let me just run that. So I'm going to add numerator as Saket. Now, as you can see, once I add the numerator, here itself the error was thrown. Since that's the reason print numerator received was not printed into the terminal. Directly as soon as the error occurred in this while converting string to integer, the except block, which is this one, was executed. As the error thrown by casting is value error, this particular statement was executed. So just like this, if you want to get the more insights over the exception that is thrown, we can use exception as E. So what here happens is, whenever an exception is thrown in this, an object of that exception is also passed to except block, wherein we'll be able to do some operations on this E. So here what we are trying to do is, we are just trying to print what the E is, so that we'll find out what sort of error that was occurred. So I'll just try to execute this example 3. So instead of entering a number, what I'll do, I'll try to add Saket again. So here you can see an error occurred, which is this part, and E consisted of this part, invalid literal for int with base 10. I've passed Saket, so Saket is being shown here. The meaning of this statement is basically it couldn't convert this Saket into integer. So that's what this error says. Now let's move on to the next example. The next example is of try, except
and finally. So the way how it works is, whenever there is an error occurs, the sequence is terminated immediately and the except block is executed. Right after executing the except block, no matter if the except block is executed or not, the finally block gets executed. So meaning, irrespective of whether the execution of try or except was completed or abruptly stopped, no matter what, the finally block will get executed. So let us try to run this. So as you can see, there is no file with the name example.txt here. As you can see, there is no such file. Whenever we try to open that file, we will get file not found error. So once we get the file not found error, right after that, we are just trying to close the resource f using f.close, and if there is any exception, we are just trying to pass it, like we are just going to ignore it. Let me try to execute this. See, as there is no file with the name example.txt, this particular block was executed. Right after opening the file, since there is no such file, this particular block got executed, and again this finally block was executed. As you can see here, print closing file if it was opened. So let me try to add print statements here as well, so that we could understand it is much more better. So file opened, file read, and contents are being printed here. Let me just try to run this now. As you can see, still there is no example.txt. So right after this execution of this line, the file not found error was thrown, as there is no example.txt, and after this particular block was executed. So as there is no file opened log in this logs that are printed here, we can conclude that this particular statement itself threw out the error. So let me try to add example.txt here so that there is no error. So I've added this. Now when we try to run the same statement, there is a file called example.txt. Hence the file gets opened, the contents will be read, and the contents will be printed. Right after printing the contents, we'll go to the finally block. As there is no errors being thrown in this set of statements, the exit block will not be executed. However, the finally block will ultimately get executed. Let me try to run this. As you can see, file is opened. The example.txt was there, hence the file was opened, and then the file was read. There is no error while reading the file, and then after that, the contents of the file, which is Saket Labs, was printed. There was no error during entire execution of the try block, hence the except block will not be executed, and finally the resources were closed in the finally block. The next example demonstrate how we can use else along with the except, try and except. So this else block only gets executed when the except blocks doesn't get executed. For example, if there is no error in the try block, then the except block will never get executed, hence the else block will get executed. Let me now try to execute the same and show you. I'm going to copy this, paste it here. Now I'm going to input a valid number itself so that this block will not throw any error. So let me input 20 here. So as there is no error in this, the print input, the except block never got executed. As you can see, there is no invalid input
in the logs here, whereas this success you have entered 20 got executed. Since except is not executed, else block was executed here. However, if I try to run this same block with an error, for example, instead of typing 20, if I type saket here, you can see only invalid input was executed, whereas else part was never executed as except block was executed. Now let us try to see how we can throw our own exceptions. So as you can see, there is a method called withdraw, and if the amount that is entered is greater than the remaining balance, then it just throws insufficient funds. It throws value error with the message insufficient funds. So if the amount is not greater than balance, then the balance is the amount is removed from the balance, and the remaining balance is returned. So let me try to execute the same here. This is withdraw method. Now as the remaining balance, whatever it is 100, and the amount that we are trying to withdraw is 150, which is clearly greater than the balance, hence the value error is thrown here. We use raise to throw errors, raise keyword here. So let me now try to run this. So as 150 is greater than 100, it should throw a value error. As you can see here, error is from here, and we are trying to print the E, which says insufficient funds. Congratulations on making it to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed the learning experience. I recommend watching the video multiple times for the concepts to settle in. If you're watching this on your phone, I highly recommend switching to a laptop and coding along. It will make your learning much more effective. In this session, we learned how we can safely handle errors without terminating the program flow. We learned how we can use try except block, try except finally, and except else block along with raising errors. All the code from this video have been pushed to the GitHub repository, and you'll find the repository link in the description below. So feel free to check it out and practice on your own. In the next video, we'll start with the OOPS concepts. We'll learn about classes, objects, encapsulation, polymorphism, abstraction, and much more. So don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification, and leave a like if you found this video useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.